Okay, welcome everybody to the pre-summit event, the first ever pre-summit event of the first ever Succeed Without Sight Summit. I'm Kristen Smedley. I'm a little bit excited about this event. I'm actually a lot of bit excited.
Just a tad.
This is my son Mitchell next to me, and he's just about had it with my level of excitement. Because here's the thing, you guys. 20 years ago when I first heard your son is blind, there was absolutely nobody to talk to for quite a couple of years about raising a blind child, all the different tools, techniques, feelings, emotions, all that. There was nobody. And now, as I was watching all of the registration for this event just constantly binging on my phone, it has been absolutely extraordinary these past few weeks. So I am so excited that it's been a 20-year journey of finding all kinds of incredible folks to be my role models for the boys. And if you've watched our journey, you know that these role models had quite the impact on my guys, and I'll talk about them another time. So we want to dive right into our incredible program for our kickoff to this event. I want to first say a huge thank you to the over 20 speakers from, I think our speakers are from 9 different countries and a gajillion different time zones that we had to manage to get everybody into this and continue this incredible momentum of role models and changing perceptions, not even just for those of us raising blind kids, but for friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, employees, the whole gamut. So this is just, it's extraordinary that you all are giving your time from your incredible occupations, families, and all that we'll hear about. So we really appreciate it. And thank you so much to all of our sponsors. You will hear from a lot of our sponsors over these next 3 days. We have some spotlight sponsors that will be talking about what their products and services for the community are. And then we have our title sponsors that you're going to see and hear a lot from over the next couple of weeks. We're so blessed to have you all involved, and thank you so much to Mr. B. Fox, who is in the Zoom room tonight, that connected us to a lot of these folks that are now just, the funny thing is with our sponsors and speakers and people coming in to support the event, it's like we're all, now we're really all in this together. Everybody's like this big team. It's like siblings, cousins. It's a big old family here that we're all connecting and making plans for this, not just being a one-time thing, but going forward. And Ben Fox has been a huge catalyst for that. Our 2 title sponsors for the next 3 days are Guide Dogs for the Blind in California. We'll hear from them later. And Utah State, we'll hear about them later as well. Tonight, you're actually going to hear from our spotlight sponsor, Low Vision International. Charlie Collins will be coming up later to talk about his work with that organization. And he kind of wears like half a gajillion hats. So that'll be fun to hear from Charlie. Tonight, the sponsorships and a portion of the VIP tickets, a portion of both of those are going towards our big project. One of my dreams is to have my book, Thriving Blind, Stories of Real People Succeeding Without Sight.
Gotta get that pitch in.
Wait, the project is to get it in hard copy Braille, 2 copies of it in hard copy Braille in every school for the blind in the United States, in their school library. And then eventually we're going to roll it out to the schools for the blind in the rest of the world, because we are global now. I didn't mention that we have attendees from 17 countries attending this summit over the next 3 days. So we are pretty excited about that. We also have, you might notice, if you can see the bottom of your screen, we have live closed captioning happening. I mean, I keep watching it go by. I'm still so excited that we have this. And that is from Asset-Based Consulting, made that possible for us. And a little shout out to our live captioner, Bo, who is typing as we are all talking. If you are familiar with the features of Zoom for closed captioning, there is a button at the bottom of your screen where you can select how big or small you want the text and a few other features. That's all under your control there, that you can work that out. We have it set for the recordings for people watching later. You're not going to be able to change it, I don't think. I think once it's recorded, you're stuck with what I picked. which
Wow.
I went with
Just
medium.
go ahead and make an
I
executive
went with
decision.
medium for everybody.
Jeez.
I was just playing around with it so much. I kept changing it. I haven't had this feature before. I wasn't able to use it. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it over in a second to our main program and my sidekick here next to me.
Sidekick. I make your shows. Don't give me that sidekick.
It is true. I do get my most views on Thriving Blind Lives when Mitchell's on them.
Yep.
But anyway, Mitchell is my younger blind son. His older brother, Michael, is away at Penn State. You'll hear from Michael on Saturday in the program. Mitch is a senior. We're in the Philadelphia area, a senior in a public high school. He's been in this school district for 12 years.
Too long.
He just hosted his last IEP meeting of his life, I guess, of his school career
Way to
yesterday.
make me sound old.
And it was absolutely amazing. Mitchell's applied to 8 colleges.
Well, I'm in the process. I've applied to 2, 6 more to come. So
in true Mitchell fashion.
I try to make things, I try to drag them out a little bit.
Yeah, you'll see my hair turn gray because they're not all done yet. However, he's looking to go into the broadcast journalism field. I'm sure that you're shocked with all of the interjecting and seeing him on all the videos on Thriving Blind. If you're not a part of the Thriving Blind community on Facebook yet, get there and follow it, and you'll get to see a lot more of Mitch there. So without further ado, Mitchell is going to introduce our first and main speaker of the evening.
Yes, I am.
And Mitchell, I should also mention, I'm going to turn this camera for those that can see. He's using the Polaris.
Yes, the Braille Sense Polaris from HIMS.
Okay, from HIMS. There you go. Okay.
Yep. All right. We should get like a drum roll sound effect.
Or you can just do your part.
That's good too, I guess. All right. Take what I can get. Tonight, I have the honor of introducing one of the coolest guys I have ever been introduced to! Exclamation point. And he is on the other side of the world in Australia. How cool is that? I am actually going to read to you an excerpt from a recent article where this extraordinary man, Duncan Meerding, was featured. Australian Wood Review raved. Duncan Meerding is a lighting and furniture designer / maker. He operates his own business, producing his own designs and commissions, predominantly in timber. He has a workshop, machinery, power and hand tools, and like many others, makes, markets, and sells things. Last year, his stump light design won Best Floor Light at the 2018 London Dark Awards, over and above entries from lighting designers from all over the world. And that was the judgment of not one small judging panel, but of a strictly vetted peer-to-peer system where only lighting and interior designers, as well as architects, are allowed to vote. Over 6,000 industry professionals voted for Duncan's design.
Oh.
That's a lot, 6,000. Duncan accepted that award in Europe, where he was also attending the opening evenings of the Venice Design 2018 exhibition as part of the Venice Biennale. He was one of 60 invited to display work in an exhibition featuring designers from around the world, an event that draws over 200,000 visitors. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so honored to have with us tonight, well, tomorrow in Australia, Duncan Meerding.
G'day, how you going?
Doing pretty well.
Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me as well. And I suppose, Mitchell, I'll leave it up to you a bit with how you want this to flow as well, in terms of what you want out of me to sort of present in terms of the overarching sort of themes. Okay. Well, I reckon there might be a mute button after a while then. Yeah, so I'm a lighting and furniture designer maker based in Hobart, Tasmania. And before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm standing on Aboriginal land, and that sovereignty has never been ceded, and that's in Tasmania. And the Tasmanian Aboriginal name for Tasmania is Lutruwita. And so yeah, I design and make lights and furniture. I'm partially blind. I've got less than 5% vision concentrated around the peripheral fields. I've been running my own small business for the last bit over 10 years now. It's not exactly what I was expecting to be doing when first of all, my vision first degenerated, and secondly, after graduating from my university degree, I thought I was going to be doing another career entirely.
Yeah.
What career did you have in mind?
That was what I was going to say. What did you have planned?
Oh, I always like to do the little teasers like that. Sorry. Yeah, social work is what I was going to be doing. But before that, before my vision degenerated, I was thinking of going to nursing. But then I went into university and I started doing prerequisites within a Bachelor of Arts, like history, like modern history, like from 1600s sort of onwards. Around that area onwards in terms of humanities, and then and sociology, and then the year after, that was the year after my vision degenerated and sort of stabilized to what I have now. And then the year after that, so the end of that year, I discovered that I could that there was a course for like vision impaired people and blind people to learn how to use tools. And that was something I was quite interested in before my site went in terms of making stuff. It's just a sort of something it's a hard one to explain where that interest comes from. It's just something, when I'm holding a tool, it's like you can concentrate on what's in front of you most of the time, at least. Then I found out about this course through Vision Australia, and it was a 10-week course, 1 day a week, and it's in Melbourne. I'm in Hobart, Tasmania, which there's a bit of water between Tasmania and the mainland Australia, which made that difficult to attend on a daily basis, once a week for 10 weeks. So I called them up and did a crash course in safety, learning how to use machines safely and things, and then got in contact with the local university and asked if I could start doing electives in sort of wood skills or furniture design. And at first I got into that from a purely making perspective, and I was just going to do a couple of electives here and there and continue with the social work stuff. But I sort of got bitten by the design bug, so to speak, and I ended up majoring in my Bachelor of Arts in a fine arts course, which is always good to confuse people. So I've got a double major of modern history and furniture design, and I graduated in mid 2010. Wow. So that just in terms of making people feel old, Mitchell, you made me feel old when you're saying you're feeling old for being in your senior years of high school. So,
yeah, well, yeah, that's quite the adventure. So getting through all that, because it sounds like, going through a bunch of different fields and kind of different paths, just kind of switching over whenever you feel like it. What kind of accessibility, like technology or otherwise, have you used along the way?
So a lot of the furniture stuff is actually skills more than anything else. Like a lot of the stuff is integrating some things that they use in the sided industry, and then other things. Sorry, I just thought someone was coming in the car. Because I'm actually doing the presentation outside the front of the workshop, because we've got some pretty hefty projects on at the moment, so I couldn't really do it from home as easily. So sorry if there's some random interjections from traffic going past. Technology. Sorry. Yeah, I use a range of different technologies. Some of them are more simple than you'd expect. Like, for example, a range of wooden blocks that sit on top of one another, and each of them have a 10 mil spacing. I use that for spacing depth on setting machines, and you can use them by sort of getting tactile feedback of like grazing them past machines as your fingers sort of touching them. And there's another thing called a click rule, which is basically a pipe with another bit of threaded rod going through it, with intervals within that give you clicks as you open it, because there's a bolt that goes down through the externality of the pipe into the threaded rod, and as you move it, it makes a little clicking noise. Yeah, so as you're moving, the noise and the feeling, you can sort of feel in 1 millimeter increments. And I think for those of you still back in the Imperial era, you can get there's ones like this in the US that use 1/16 of an inch. That's called a click rule, and that's about 200 mil long, and that's like they're the two sort of more like that point measuring, and it's quite hard to sort of explain without actually having one in your hands, or using it in practice. But the blocks are a bit easier to explain. But then on top of that, I also use things like a talking tape measure, talking calipers, and then other things like making models. And trying to do the design side of things, not getting caught up on the technology, but actually going back to the skill that is sort of becoming a bit sidelined by computer modeling is making models using anything like pipe cleaners or coat hangers for anything really. I've also recently just had a range of talking equipment fitted to some of my machinery. I did a bit of research and it took a while to sort of work it out. It was a bit of a 2-year project. It's still sort of being tuned at the moment, but it involves a range of different technologies, some of them off the shelf, that then translate something that's a digital signal and transfers it and makes it into an audible one. And that's to make things like thickness planers, which that's for dimensioning timber, or table saws, that's for cutting things to length or ripping them to width. Have them read out up to the 1/10 of a millimeter accuracy in an audible and accessible manner.
That's crazy.
But that's utilizing like a Raspberry Pi is plugged into like this little translating box plugged into something else with an optical reading thing. So it's similar to like a caliper or vernier gauge for anyone that uses those sorts of things. But a lot of this stuff is sort of either jerry rigging or looking at what's off the shelf, but there's not much around in terms of some of the stuff. And luckily there's been a few like there's a new talking tape measure compared to when I first began, and it's a lot more robust than the original ones that I was using, because I'd sort of destroy one a year, and these ones are not quite that bad, but when they're costing hundreds of dollars, that's quite it's not quite $10 Walmart tape measure or whatever you use over there. We use Bunnings, but your hardware, it's not quite as cheap as your $10 tape measure.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, the amount of kind of variability in the stuff that you use. You went from wooden blocks to optical. This is plugged into this, is plugged into that. That's I really like the kind of how different that is, and how you said some of it's not as complex as you might think for being a furniture designer, with all those moving parts and stuff. Just using wooden blocks that was probably my favorite tool. I can understand that. So
well, yeah. Well, yeah. I think for a lot of this stuff, from my perspective, it's your biggest access or your biggest adaptive tool is your brain, and working out different ways of doing things. And that's probably why I think a lot of people, disabled people, people that that have to adapt, have good prerequisites to get into design or making fields, because it does involve a lot of adaptive thinking.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people make the solution a lot harder than it has to be. I like that you kind of keep it real, and I mean, you use complex stuff when you have to, and the systems you talked about were proof of that. So using all that stuff, you can probably create pretty much anything you want with all those different tools you just mentioned. But what's the best one what's your favorite thing you've ever made?
I get asked that regularly, and I'm like, I don't know, basically. There's certain things I like the look of and the effect of, and in terms of the aesthetics. And there's certain things that I think I've found the most rewarding in terms of developing the design. And I suppose the one that has been the most popular is my cracked log lamp or stump lights. And that's actually what's been what my practice is being hammered with at the moment, and what you're saying in terms of making anything or doing anything yourself. And sometimes it's gaining the skills and the thinking is the key thing. And then you don't always necessarily have to do it all yourself. And I think that's the key thing, is to understand that everyone has different strengths and weaknesses with low/no sight or with full sight. So, most small businesses usually have a range of different people that have different skills within that business. But going back to the thing that I've probably enjoyed, is probably a bit of a sadistic word to use in this sort of situation, but I suppose gained the most from would be the propeller light. And that's basically 8 blades that slot into a central disc that have like a wooden nose cone, like a propeller plane from, imagine like a Spitfire style, World War II style propeller plane. And it's got these pedal sort of inspired blades. So it's kind of, imagine getting a flower and a propeller and making them, to have a bit of a synergy and turn them into like this sort of this light. And it's got a twisted offset sort of radius put on each blade. And I learned a lot in trying to actually execute it. And it took me a couple of years to actually figure out how to do that design, like going from the initial inception of the design, from playing with some plywood, with putting the grain on offset on the pedals, to going, okay, well, how do I make this into a resolved product? And I think that's the thing that I find most rewarding about this work is the design thinking. And like product, I think, is interesting, but I've also been getting involved and I suppose projects that I've probably been quite proud of or have enjoyed a lot was ones where I've been involved in helping other people learn some of the skills to be able to get started. Because a lot of the time, I think vision impaired or blind people, there's a lot of assumptions thrown out in front of them by the wider community in general. And luckily I was able to do some guest teaching last year in 2019 through the Architecture Beyond Sight course run by the Disordinary Architecture Project and University College of London. And I believe we might actually have one of the participants of that course online at the moment over in the UK. Hello, Clark. That was amazing for me to be able to sort of say, well, there's so much potential, but we need to sort of get around the whole sort of risk adverse nature that some people have and the ableist assumptions. I'm not saying that everyone on this call needs to go and grab themselves a circular saw and start running around with it. I'm very much an advocate for people getting the correct training because there are risks associated with using tools and things. But I think that the best way to reduce risk is to make things accessible. And that sort of following on from that, did another collaborative course down in Tasmania over the last 6 weeks. And luckily, we've been COVID free in Tasmania for the last 2 months. And so over those 6 weeks, I was able to help do a course within my own workshop in collaboration with one of the local service providers called Visibility. And it was a similar sort of wood skills development sort of process, and really sort of I find that rewarding, like getting to see the transformation from raw wood and people coming in and not having seen or felt any of this stuff before, any of this quite different technology or different techniques like jigs or what have you. I can talk more about that later if people want. And then sort of going, okay, this is what's possible, and sort of opens up a whole new can of worms, so to speak, for three-dimensional creativity.
Yeah. I liked hearing about the what you're working on that new propeller now, right? That's currently
no, that's been developed.
Oh, okay.
We've got different variations of that one. Yeah, so that was something that I think the original idea came about in late 2011. It was not till 2015 that I was actually selling any of them as products. So just to give people an idea that there's a bit involved in working things out, and I've still been refining the design. It's not like there's a lot of work in terms of working some things out, and sometimes I think maybe a degree of stubbornness as well. But I did have to walk away from that design at one point, and to be able to clear my head and then come back to it.
Yeah. It's interesting you say, it took 4 years. That the creative process, it's a long haul. It's not a simple thing, and it sounds like a complex item that it took a while to develop, but it sounds like it was rewarding. So, what are you working on now? What's been taking you 4 years for the last 4 years?
Oh, we've developed some new works. In fact, it's been quite an interesting period during the last few months from our design practice, because we had an open studio where we developed 6 or 7 new designs, and it was quite amazing to sort of work through that. And I've got some people that come in and help out as within the practice, and that's been quite a different sort of experience for me, sort of managing multiple designs or working out different ways of executing multiple things. And we did a giant 2-meter high version of the crack log lamp, the stump light, and they're called the trunk lights because I'm very original with my naming. And that was installed at my old college. So colleges in Tasmania, we've got a very unique and peculiar system, even within the Australian system, and it's year 11 and 12. So the final 2 years of high school studies, and that was actually those trunk lights were installed at my old college in Hobart College, and there's two 2-meter ones and two 1.2 meter ones, and they'll look like these trees basically growing out of the concrete ground within the theatre foyer. And there's cracks sort of going all around the tree trunks, in this sort of zigzag pattern, a bit like cracks on a cliff face. And the light sort of comes around almost like a zigzag of lightning, like stylized lightning. And that light sort of flashes around like the dappling effect of a forest canopy. And that took a couple of months earlier this year to sort of execute those projects. And there was a bit of a process getting there the year beforehand, and we're actually working on some big orders that are going out overseas at the moment, which it's been a bit of an interesting process trying to figure out how to scale up what is effectively a very hand-making thing, which is the stump light, which is I've got some people working on in the background at in the workshop at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I jump in for a second?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
So I am just sitting here so enthralled hearing about all the work, and I'm like getting lost in the art of it and forgetting that I'm the one that's supposed to steer it back to skills, tools, and perceptions of blindness. I'm so enthralled in the creative.
Well, he's been hitting on it throughout the answers.
I know it's exciting. But here's my question before we let you get back to your incredible work. If you could give some advice, some talking with parents that are just starting on this journey with raising blind kids, and just what would you tell them in terms of kids chasing dreams and doing the things that they want to do?
It's not like it's a funny one, because I suppose it's different for different people, because some people are born with sight loss, or some people have steady degenerations, or some people have immediate ones. But I think for everyone, I think it's just like it's not that you can't do things, it's that you just got to do things differently. And yes, of course, there are certain things that vision impaired and blind people can't do, and like flying planes. But in fact, I've heard of somebody doing that with a co-pilot with some talking equipment a number of years ago. So but there are different ways of doing things, and I think the key thing is just to keep resilient to the assumptions that will be thrown at you, because I still have assumptions thrown at me quite regularly, being vision impaired or legally blind. And I think the key thing is to just keep on reminding the students, or the children of blind parents and the parents themselves, is that it's part of a journey to sort of work out these new things, because we're in quite an exciting time at the moment, because there are quite a few things that are happening. I know within Australia and internationally within the disability community, like there's a Disability Arts International Festival going on at the moment, which is called, I think, Thrive Aid. I can't remember.
Oh.
We might be able to find that out for the notes for the rest of it. But that is showcasing disabled artists around the world. And I just want to also point out I'm using the word disabled person or disabled artist because I do adhere to the social model of disability, not the health one. And yes, we do like have a health thing that leads to the disability in some respects, but the social model sort of helps explain that it's not necessarily about the individual and their problems, but it's also about the way society is structured in the way it disables people. So, you know, a very simple way of talking about that is the stairs and the number of stairs that are put around the place. That's what makes the person who's in a wheelchair disabled, not necessarily just the health condition. It's the lack of access, and that's definitely what I think people need to keep on maintaining within their resilience is keep on trying to learn things, keep on trying to develop, because all people need to do that, but also keep resilient to be able to keep on doing so and keep on doing it within the context of, okay, why is this not as accessible to me, or is this as accessible as it should be to me, within the context of keeping that resilience and trying to change it for yourselves, but also for future people as well.
Awesome. You know, we're supposed to switch gears and go to our next speaker and then have the Q&A, but I'm wondering if we can just jump right into see if anyone has questions right now, so that we don't hold you up any longer. Let me just switch this view.
Yeah, this man's got 7 designs going for
If folks have a question, if you want to, because this isn't the massive overload, I think we can manage this one right now. If you have a question and want to unmute, and I will also look in the chat. Yes, Duncan is speaking my language. Beyond thrilled that he's addressing this important piece of the puzzle. Grateful for you bringing this up. And that's Michelle. And I'm assuming that whole access and what disability really is.
That was really interesting. That was, you're only disabled relative to your environment is, it's a really, I've never thought of that before. That's really amazing.
Hi, it's Clark here. So, and obviously just echo what Duncan said. You know, as visually impaired people, we seem to be on the lowest down the list when they think about making it accessible for disabilities. You know, people, they always think about wheelchairs and things like that. But as for a blind person, we always seem to be on the bottom of the list. No one seems to, especially during lockdown, we obviously restrictions and stuff for guide dogs. We always seem to be the one, we're the ones that get yelled at because we don't know what 2 meters are and things like that. So, you know, this lockdown has proved the point that visually impaired people are in the 21st century are still overlooked as a disability.
Yeah, it's a good point about the 2 meters.
And can I just inject with what Clark just brought up, because Clark is actually one of the participants in the course I was one of the guest teachers at, and he's been kicking some amazing goals this year as well in terms of his arts practice. And I think he's talking later on in the program. But the Architecture Beyond Sight project, which I was just referring to, I think is a really good example of meeting looking at the social model and looking at, okay, how do we make society more accessible in general? And well, you look at architecture is probably one of the things that is biggest barriers for disabled people. Because, you know, the built environment is so crucial to navigation or what have you. And the whole idea behind this course was to not just make it accessible for vision impaired people to get into architecture, but to look at making it more accessible for the disabled in general. But on top of that, looking at ways of changing perceptions with architecture more broadly, about access, about making it less of an audit-based thing, of a reactive-based thing, but making it, okay, how do we make architecture accessible, but more making it better, like making it more aesthetically pleasing through access and through vision impairment being involved there, and not just dealing with the sight dominant, because the problem is that in of itself, you know, can not just be bad for, say, auditory overloading for people that have issues in that area, but for everyone in general. It's just things that are in the subconscious. And that Architecture Beyond Sight course, really quite amazed with that sort of concept behind that, because it is about trying to change society more broadly and sort of push what is currently a fairly able dominated sector in new directions. And I just, if people want to look up Architecture Beyond Sight, you just give that a Google, or look up the Disordinary Architecture Project, which is based in the UK, which is sort of the driving force behind it, and they did it in collaboration with UCL.
That's awesome. Anyone have any questions for Duncan? I keep forgetting to look at the chat.
You have one job.
I know.
Or like 20.
Or yeah, thanks.
Hey,
Sounds like
Duncan,
you
this
get a
is
bit
Ben
of,
Fox.
yeah.
How you doing? I'm out in Baltimore. I'm curious, when people hear that you're an artist and they make assumptions right off the bat, where do you even get started on explaining how you do your work? And I mean, just could you enlighten me? Because I like to do art and I'm a filmmaker, and people are like, how do you even do that? And I don't even know where to start sometimes. Love to hear how you deal with that and educate folks. Thank you.
Alright. So yeah, so that's difficult from both perspectives. One as a disabled artist, the other's just as a standard creative practitioner. And I think everyone who's involved in the arts probably has that issue, because people don't understand it necessarily. And it's like trying to go up to an anaesthetist, is tell me how to do your work in 5 minutes. It's like, well, it's not that simple. Hopefully I don't have the same effect as an anaesthetist through my presentation and sending people to sleep. But I think the key thing is I think you know, trying to just maintain a bit of patience. And also when I first started my arts practice in terms of my disability and explaining my disability in relation to my arts, I was very scared of using my, use the word using my disability in terms of marketing. But I had somebody come up to me who was quite successful, who was an able-bodied designer, but was quite successful. He said, that's really quite amazing in terms, and not in a condescending way, but it's like what you do is different. And it's got good benefits for design in more general terms. Because having that said to me by him and also by another colleague at that point made me realize that, okay, well, it's disability doesn't have to necessarily be a negativity based thing. It can be an enlightening thing in terms of, or just, it doesn't even have to be enlightening. It's just who we are. And my arts practice is definitely involved by my visual fields. I've got sight dominated around the periphery, and I often do lighting, which is based around diffusing light through and around objects. So like for people who are sighted, you can put your fists in front of your face and sort of squint your eyes, and that's what I see on the outside of my fists. But I think that's the really key thing is working out what you're comfortable with. If you're going to be talking about your disability in regards to your work, and working out when to shut people down in terms of being inappropriate about it. And so, for example, I was curating a show, and one of the reporters was asking me about my vision in terms of the curatorial stuff. I said, look, that's not anything to do with this. This is not a project about my vision. It's about promoting a certain type of wood and promoting design in general. And I had to have that conversation, but that's a judgment call for everyone to make. And so the creative side of things that you're talking about, Ben, that's another kettle of fish. It's like, well, how do you explain what you do? But for me, like it's very much, again, goes back to my creative process is governed by my vision in terms of coming up with new ideas. But yeah, it's very much, I suppose, just remaining patient and sort of explaining to people and having it as a dialogue and a conversation. So on that note, I should probably stop talking.
That's terrific. All right, Duncan, thank you so much for joining us, for making time out of that incredibly busy schedule, and for the great work that you do. We really appreciate it. Where can folks find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you if folks want to follow up?
There's an email on my website, which is duncan@duncanmeerding.com.au. Spelling of my last name is a bit funny. I'm sure you can probably find it in the program of this conference. But otherwise, you can also look up my website, which is duncanmeerding.com.au. I'm always interested in having conversations with people and explaining and access stuff, especially. So feel free to get in contact.
We do have one more question in the chat asking if your work is for sale.
Absolutely. That's actually what we're working on at the moment. Is I've got about I'm actually freaking out a little bit about it, but we're sort of working through it. I've got three people in the workshop working behind me. I've got close to 100 lights on back order, going to different parts around the world. And yes. Short answer, yes. And can send different places around the world. And I also just wanted to thank you, Christian, and your fan work you're doing, and can listen to some of this, the presentations retrospectively when things calm down a bit. And it's always, I think that's the other thing that I really want to drive home, is that community and learning from each other is really important. And I really hope I can get to hear some more about other people's experiences later on.
Great. Well, thanks a bunch, Duncan.
Thanks, Duncan.
Thank you, Christian.
Catch you
Thanks,
later,
Mitchell.
Duncan.
See you, Clark.
All right, and next up we have, and I'm going to try to click on the screen while I'm talking.
Uh-oh, she's multitasking, people. Watch out. This might not end well.
Anyway, next up we have Charlie Collins, and Charlie is Director of Sales for North America for LVI America, Low Vision International Americas, as well as the founder of both Vision Dynamics and CCI, Charlie Collins International. He's a well-respected international transformational speaker, certified professional success coach, and best-selling author who helps inspire and empower people to live a life with clear vision of success. Here's one of my most favorite parts of Charlie's bio. Jack Canfield, renowned New York Times best-selling success. Hold on a minute. Charlie's story was also featured in Jack Canfield's renowned New York Times best-selling Success Principles 10th anniversary edition. I did not know that about you, Charlie, but thank you so much for being here with us. And let's hear from Charlie.
Yeah.
He has to unmute.
All right.
There you go.
And I'll turn on video.
There we
There
go.
we are. I'm here. Well, thank you. Thank you both for putting this conference on. It's this virtual conference. It's so needed. It's fantastic. I'm just going to share a little bit about my journey, bringing me up to, where I am tonight. And sorry, something came on the screen that I can't see anyway.
You're on the screen now.
Yeah. I see.
Looking good.
I could tell it's my head. So anyway, after 2 years of being in and out of doctors' offices with no success, and these are doctors for hearing, vision, and psychiatrists and things. What was going on with me? Something was failing in my school years in 2nd and 3rd grade. I had an older brother and sister who also were not successful. Things were starting to happen. And we got recommended to go to Mass Ioneer. So my 4 sisters, my brother, my parents, all 8 of us jumped in the big old Plymouth station wagon, and we headed up to Mass Ioneer in Boston, Massachusetts. And we sat down and went through 2 grueling days of testing on our eyes. And I remember thinking, why are they checking my eyes? I don't think that's a problem. And after those days, we were sat down in a room, and the doctor said that he had some news for us, and that 4 out of 6 children were diagnosed with a very rare eye disease called juvenile macular degeneration. It's also known as Stargardt's disease. And I was 9, and I remember thinking, wait a minute, I'm one of them. And I was going to be a jet fighter pilot, race cars, race motorcycles, be a cop, a fireman. Obviously, everything I wanted to be was fast, and it was dangerous. And I was already, riding bikes like a maniac at 9 years old. And I remember thinking, boy, you just took that away from me, these guys. And we had to come back every quarter. And because they kind of told us at the end, whatever the pill or whatever the thing may be that's going to fix it would fix it. So for a year and a half, we went there, and I'll never forget the last time we went. And I liked it because I got out of school, got to play in a hotel, but they sat us down again and said, we want to thank you for your service and coming all this time and helping us understand this disease better. But, we don't have a cure. I'm like, what? You don't have a cure? And all they had was a piece of paper. And they handed it to my mother, and it said, here are the things you want to be, not let your children do. And it was snow skiing, like lights and colors are going to start to fade, sports we shouldn't play, we could get hurt. Basically, they were saying, be very protective and watch over these children. And we got up from that table, and as we walked around at the corner, my mother took that piece of paper, crumpled it up, and threw it in a garbage can.
Yeah.
And they did the exact opposite of that growing up. They did not do anything for us that we could do for ourselves. They guided us, mentored us, and then let us fall, let us make mistakes, let us get angry. And they did that, and they never enabled me. And because of that, I figured out life. It took a while. But after I get out of this doctor's place and I go back, I'm now, I'm resentful, I'm angry, I'm self-pitying, I'm feeling sorry, what is going on? I can't believe they didn't fix it. How am I ever going to get through life? This is going to suck. And this is what I focused on, right? I focused on the problem, at least what I thought was the problem, the disease in my eye. And I was doing a lot of blaming, rationalizing, justifying, complaining, and defending my position. Hey, you know what? Deal with it, because I'm legally blind, and that's I need to act this way. At age 13, I went into school. I remember going down the hallway, and the people were coming at me, and I couldn't really see their faces, but I could hear the buzzing, and I knew they were all coming at me. So I sat in the classroom, and by then, now they're putting me in the front row, like that's going to help, but put me in the front row so that all the kids can laugh at me. No problem. The teacher said, now we're going to read out of the book. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I hate reading. This big lump in my chest, like, please don't come. I mean, I sat there almost sweating and hating and feeling like I don't ever want to come to school again. Well, the bell rings, I get out of class and I go down to the gym. On this day, we're playing dodgeball. Dodgeball sucks when you're visually impaired. But it's not so bad throwing the ball, it's getting it thrown at you. But here's the problem. There were captains that picked, and I got picked last. And I felt like a loser. I got picked last. Now, if I was a guy picking, I would have picked me last too, because I want to win. Who wants a legally blind guy on their team? He's going to get out. But boy, it really hurt. And I jumped on my BMX bike and I rode home that day, and I walked in the house with my head down, and my mom's going, how was school? Fine. Like, I'm going to tell you that I'm full of fear. I don't fit in. I don't ever want to go back. I hate school. I hate you. I hate everybody. And I didn't tell her that. I just said, fine. She said, you got some mail. And I said, oh, mail. Well, yeah, it was probably the second time I ever got mail. It was a big piece of mail. And I went and I ripped it open. I dumped it out, and a bunch of stuff fell out. But there was this one thing I picked up, and it was a certificate. And it said, Charles J. Collins, you are now declared legally blind by the state of Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, I can't wait to frame that and hang it next to my Farrah Fawcett poster. So now the whole state knows I'm a loser. Before, it was just the doctors and some people in school. I was hiding it as much as I could. I did get a free fishing license, and I was declared legally blind. And now, I look back, I'm grateful I wasn't declared illegally blind. That might have been more of a challenge. But anyway, I plummeted. I went downhill. I focused on poor me, and I went out to show you I could drive, and I couldn't. I went to show you that I'm not the loser you think I am. And they weren't thinking it. I thought it. I saw the world as I was. It was a scary place. There was no place for me in this world. Well, I was riding a motocross bike at 20, 21. I started riding motocross bikes. I was doing things like that. And my parents just shook their head. I had all the gear. I'd come home. I put the motorcycle in the basement one winter, and I stripped it down to the frame. I rebuilt the motor, painted it, and put it all back together. My mother said, how the heck do you know how to do that? I said, I don't know. It's common sense. I wrote big on every darn part with masking tape so I could put, but I was adapting intuitively to my disease, to this problem I had, though I didn't know. And so I was cutting the grass at a motorcycle dealership, but I will tell you, I barely made it out of high school. Okay. I went to college and I failed out 3 times, but I did not fail out of college. I feared out of college. I was petrified of what you thought of me, and I learned now you weren't thinking of me, but I thought you were. And if you were thinking what I was thinking, then you knew I was a loser. So I was cutting the grass up at this motorcycle dealership that I went to quite a bit. And, I used to cut it because I got a credit for my parts for my motorcycle. And the owner came out one day and he was this long bearded ZZ Top looking dude. I loved him. His name was Jimbo. And he said, "Can I talk to you?" And my first thought was, he's going to fire me. He just realized, why the hell did I hire a legally blind guy to cut my lawn? But I did a darn good job. And he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And I said, "Sure, what's up?" He said, "I was wondering if you wanted to work here." I'm like, "What? Work here? Doing what?" "Selling motorcycles." And in my mind, I heard it say, why would he ever ask a legally blind dumb guy if he wants to work here? And how did he know? I wanted to, but I'm way too afraid. I said, "Jimbo, I'll have to let you know." And I went home. I jumped on my scooter. I rode. I was only legally blind back then, like 2,200. It's like gold compared to what it is now. But anyway, I got home and I walked in the house and I said, "Mom, you're not going to believe it. Jimbo offered me a job and, oh, you would be great at it. You love motorcycles. You're so good." And I said, God, she's just saying that. She's my mother. I went to bed that night. The bed I lied in many nights. The bed I lied in, I used to look up into the sky to the God of my misunderstanding. And I would say, "Please take me." The nights I would cry myself to sleep and wonder, why I don't want to wake up in the morning. And this night, that didn't happen. I was at the jumping off point of my life. Depression, self-pity. I turned to things that were killing me. And, it's either you go out and blot out your intolerable existence, or you make a decision and you take some action in your life. And it was hard. It was scary. When I went to bed, I got up in the morning and went up there and I told Jimbo, I said, "Jimbo, I'll take the job, but I got to tell you something." And really what I'm saying, but I didn't say it, thankfully, is, "What are you thinking, dude? I'm legally blind. You want to find somebody who's worthy to work here. I'm not." And I said, "I'm legally blind. And I'm going to need, in the first time of my life at age probably 22, I said to him, 23, I said, I'm going to need help." I never asked for help. I didn't like help. I'm not a loser. I don't need help, but I needed it. And he said, "Sure, whatever you need." You know why, Charlie? I'm willing to give you the help you need because I believe in you. Because you are going to be an asset to this company. What you're going to bring here and help us and achieve our goals, I believe in you. So let's get you started. And I almost cried right in front of him. That was the first time. I didn't believe in me. I needed him to believe in me because that gave me just enough push to put one foot in front of the other and start moving. And I got my assistive technology, adaptive equipment. I got this big reading machine. I got this pen that wrote dark, a lamp. I got a computer with I had no idea how to use any of this stuff. My brain's like a muscle, and it goes into atrophy if you don't use it. And I didn't read for 10, 12 years. I didn't read nothing. I never read. Why would I read? I can't. And I got this machine and I started reading, and my brain lit up like a Christmas tree. I couldn't stop. I loved it. I could write. I could read. I could move over to a computer at large print. I became somebody. I had a brain. It was starting to work. And you know what? In 3 short years, I went from cutting the grass and doing the gardens out front to the VP and part owner of that company.
Wow.
Multi-million-dollar business. The legally blind guy is sitting in his office with his own corporate card going, "I own part of this place. How did that happen?" And then the journey took off from there, and it's like I now knew that I had a brain and it was possible. I just need to make some decisions and use some tools in my life. I left that business and I went and started my own business called Vision Dynamics. And Vision Dynamics was supplying adaptive equipment for people. And I knew I had 3 customers, my 2 sisters and my brother, when I was opening that company. But I thought, geez, I'll never make it with them because they're going to want a discount. So,
Oh,
so I went to work. I found people. I found out in my state that my business kept doubling, hiring, mentoring, hiring, bringing more blind people in. We're all sorts of visually impaired, whether it was blind, low vision, anything and everything. I got interviewed once. I was on TV. I was in newspapers, and this compound effect. I had contracts, government contracts. And the best part about it was the transformation. The people that came in and said, I can't. I wasn't told. I didn't know. My life is terrible. I feel so alone. I have no independence anymore. The blessing of that job was the transformation on the people that came in, the students, the people in the workplace, and the seniors I helped transform the lives of. I loved it. It kept me going. And I sold it in 2016. But I do want to say that company won some big awards. And that wasn't my goal. See, in my life for years, I was a go-getter. Something shifted and I became a go-giver. I said, you know what? It's not about me. It's not about what I get, how I look, how I feel. And it was for a long time because I was beat up. I needed you to like me and think I was okay. And then I no longer came from the position of I have an eye disease. I'm not worthy. I'm not a legally blind guy. I'm Charlie Collins. I have an eye disease, but it isn't who I am. It does not define me unless I let it. I love what Duncan said. The best tool I have throughout all my environments is my mind. And if put to proper use, I will succeed. And I sold that company. I started a company from scratch, from an idea. It was the second retail store in the country, in the United States. And I just thought of it. I was a friendly serve attendant at a mobile station. I said, well, I certainly don't want to do this much longer. And then the thought came to me. And I acted on it. Then I sold that. Then I got recruited in the industry to help set up more businesses and help people. And this company, LVI, Low Vision International, based out of Växjö, Sweden, I get a phone call. I say, hey, we want to know if you might want to help set up distribution in North America for us. Oh, that's a big goal. I like that. I can do that. You mean I get to fly around? I get to do speaking. I get to share my business knowledge. I get to help others. And that's exactly what I did. But let me just step back before I know I'm getting near the end here. I want you guys to know that you focus on the inner promptings, something, a voice inside, act on that. Because I was told, you need to write a book. And I was like, shut up. Who is saying that? That guy I had the good guy and the bad guy. I kind of like the bad guy. But anyway, I need to write a book. I'm not that good. I barely made it out of high school. See, Charlie used to like to find why he couldn't do something. And that came easier than how I could. And then is it possible that I could write a book? Yes. How? Well, I'm not worried about it. What does that look like? Well, my book is called Tripping into the Light. And I lived so many years of this bondage of self. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't God's fault. It wasn't my teacher's fault. It wasn't those doctors' fault. And it certainly wasn't my parents' fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. The fact of the process was that I created all my suffering. My eye disease didn't. See, we don't see with our eyes, we see with our brains. But I didn't know that. And with a healthy brain, anything is possible. I do presentations all around. And one of my slides, I hit the clicker, and they're really big print, so I can cheat a little from them to get prompted. But anyway, I have this one slide that says, what is the number one cause of blindness? And a lot of times I'm in the industry or outside the industry trying to wake people up. And people will start popcorning answers. Macular degeneration, retinitis pigmentosus, diabetic retinopathy. Those are all great answers, but they're all wrong. And then I hit my thingy. I say the number one cause of blindness is thinking. Right? I mean, it can't be anything else because we don't see it. It just passes. We live in a sighted world. Everything outside of us. I was changing the mechanism on the toilet in the house. The thing you push it, it keeps leaking. It's driving me nuts. So I said, oh, it needs that new thingamajigger. So my daughter has the manual, the big piece of paper open, and she's in the bathroom with me. And I'm in there. Okay, yeah. She's telling me, well, Dad, you're not even looking. I said, yes, I am. My hands are in there. I see with my hands. And amazing. I could go on all night talking about success. Environments is my thing. I now have a company called Maximize, Maximeyes, maximize your environments. And I heard that a messy environment does not help create success. Success for me is a worthy ideal is it's not money in the house. I have all that. I'm married. I have kids. I have a dog. I have lots of stuff. But what I have is purpose. I have meaning. I come from a place that I can help and serve others. And when I do that, my needs get met. I do not want to be the problem anymore. I do not want to focus on what is not possible. But it's a daily reprieve I work on. It doesn't happen automatically. And the more I get out there and I speak, I go, oh my God, there are a lot of sighted blind people because they're sighted and they're stuck. And they're like, oh, man, they have the same story I did. I thought I was alone. I'm not. And thank God I have macular degeneration, legal blindness, and I've been through what I've been through because it's made me who I am today. And that's a good thing. That's where I'll stop.
Wow.
Well, that is a good thing, Charlie. You're a good thing. How about that, everybody? That was absolutely fantastic, Charlie. Well, to have Kristen Smedley speechless is a miracle. Charlie is a miracle worker. You guys go ahead and unmute if you wanna ask Charlie a question or have anything to say. And we have some folks that joined late because we've had some issues with the links that went out. So my apologies, but we've recorded and we're going to share that around.
Charlie, that was amazing, mate. I'm blown away. Yeah, I mean, I remember 25 years ago when more than that, when I had my first eye started to go. And I wasn't put in the front of the class. I was put in the back of the class because there was nothing they could do. So for me, it was the opposite. But yeah, it's amazing story. I mean, obviously, I'm an artist, but I want to give back to the community, the vision impaired community, through my art. And hopefully one day I'll be as successful as you. At the moment, I'm a poor artist, not getting anywhere. But hopefully, who knows, as an artist, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. Hopefully, I am in this summit.
Yep. Fantastic.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I'm sitting here when you're going through the beginnings of that story. That was one of the most relatable things I've ever heard is the sitting in the front of the class all the time, the dodgeball in gym, which really does suck when you can't see the balls, And even like I don't know if you heard me, but I cheered when you said, and she crumbled it up and threw it in the trash can. I loved it because, me and my brother, we played sports and we did all that stuff. And, we got hurt, he hit me in the face with a hockey stick and we did all that stuff. We got hurt, but I mean, this lady next to me, she let us do all that crazy stuff. And I mean, it's the truest thing that it's just so relatable. And I think a lot of people, and I mean, man, it was powerful. Thank you for sharing that. That was amazing.
Oh, you're very welcome. Let me just tell you, in high school, I pole vaulted.
What? I don't even understand how anyone does that, sighted or blind. That's crazy. That is insane.
I pole vaulted.
To the girls' tennis court.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's good. Okay, I'm looking in the chat because I always forget to look in the chat. Charlie, what would I mean, you gave a ton of advice in there through your story. What advice would you give a parent that is just starting on this journey with so many overwhelming feelings and things to consider? What would be some first pieces of advice for them? First steps.
Yeah, I mean, besides staying connected to communities like this, your book, and people that are thriving blind and families that are thriving because of this, it's take a deep breath, and just really look inside and just love that kid. Love him, watch him fail, watch this happen, let it, because the power's in that person. It's not in you. The power. So, my parents could have held us back, and who knows where I would be now, probably dead. But they didn't. They loved us and they allowed us, just like Mitchell, they allowed me to fail. They allowed me to try. I tried out for football. I pole vaulted. I did wrestling. I tried everything. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. You know, someone had told me early on that someday I needed to work on making it sooner than later to see the child, not the disability, that it would fade in the background. And I remember when it took a while for Michael, and then it was so much faster for Mitchell. And thank God that happened but I will say for parents out there, I did fall back every now and again, and I would do it again. Like I would blame, oh, it's because, he's in that fight with that friend because of the blindness. That's what's in the way. And I kept doing it until when I finally stopped, I realized it was last year, and he's going to be 21. And I finally stopped thinking of that first and just, oh, well, was he a jerk in the situation? Like, or did this happen because of something else in him as opposed to the blindness? That was a hard journey for me, though.
How many times have I had to hear you speak about, like, you wanted me and Michael to be the star quarterback and the star baseball pitcher? And that dream had to be let go, but we still crushed it. We were, in our town, we were big baseball and football and, soccer. We went to that championship and we should have won, but they cheated.
Okay, that's a whole nother summit. Youth sports and Mitchell's aggression in youth sports.
We won.
But yeah, I always say now, thank God my dreams for them were crushed early on. Thank God. And they got to I didn't know what to expect. So I just said, all right, I'll get you what you need and follow your lead.
Oh, look, that rhymes.
Look
Good
at that.
job.
It's like a poem. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Charlie. Thanks for supporting the mission here and for being here tonight to kick us off. And I think we're actually going to have to share this night on Facebook to let folks know just what's happening in this.
Hey, Kristen, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
I put it in chat, but I think I sent it to you privately. This is Kim, and my son Kai is sitting here with me.
Hey. What's up?
Yeah, that was great, Charlie. We really enjoyed hearing what you had to say. And as a mom of a 18-year-old who's blind, I would like to know, could you say a little bit more about your slide about thinking being the number one form of blindness, I think is how you said it?
Mm-hmm. So I go through responsibility. E plus R equals O. So the events in our life, how we respond equals our outcomes. If we don't like our outcomes in our lives, and what most of us do is blame the event. I blame the event of blindness, teachers, testing, small print. I always was blaming, and the outcome of my life wasn't changing. It was getting worse. So I learned about responsibility. And so in my presentation, I go through that. And how does that tie into? Because the number one, I believe, and now when I present, people come up and go, my God, that's right. The number one cause of blindness is thinking. And how does that affect you? I mean, that's really what you got to look at. But cause and effect. So a cause. So if blindness, if thinking is my number one cause, which it was all my life, I wrote a book about it. I mean, it couldn't be anything else. It couldn't have been the drusins and the little disease in the back of my retina. That can't be the cause because it's on my eyeball. It doesn't do my thinking. It doesn't tell me I'm a loser. My eyeballs don't do that. They just pass lights and whatever the heck it is they see back to my brain. But I could shut my eyes and be very content, and I could do this presentation as long as Kristen doesn't shut it off without telling me. So, you know what I mean? It's like, that's why. Absolutely thinking. And I know each and every one of us on this tonight could say, yep, I know when I held myself back. Yep, I know when I believed the lie. Yep, I know when fear came in and I played with that and it kept me stuck. And it had nothing to do with my eye disease. It had everything to do with my thinking.
It's magnificent.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Kim. I'm terrible with the chat. Everyone has to get used to that and just speak up because I try to keep up with it. That was great. Anybody have anything else before we wrap up?
What time does the party start tomorrow?
Whenever you get there.
Well, that's obvious.
6:30 tomorrow night is our special focus on teens night. We are inviting everybody to join it, not just the teens, but we are giving the microphones to the teens that will be in the room. We have a program, and then there's time for conversation. We have a very exciting program, actually, for tomorrow night. And Kai, whose mom was just talking, will be involved with that, with Mitch and some other folks, and
Yeah.
Mr. B. Fox.
Yeah.
Has a team of folks coming on there. So that's going to be a great night. And then we have our main event all day Saturday. And Charlie and Duncan, I could not have planned this better. The way it all came together for you guys to kick us off here, to get everybody in the right frame of mind of what Thriving Blind and Succeeding Without Sight are all about. There is so much joy, as has been the case through the whole planning of this event. You guys have carried that element of joy and positivity and honestly, realness. I appreciate how real you've been with your journey and hiccups and different challenges you had, and acknowledging that and letting all of us get into that with you, and then coming out on the other side and guiding us through that. So I appreciate your time tonight. I appreciate you sharing your journey and being a part of this incredible mission. And thank you all for taking the time tonight, and watch your inboxes. Tomorrow is a different link, and I'm so happy we set it up that way for whoever had glitches with tonight's link. I'm gonna upload this recording tonight and send it out to everybody to your inbox tomorrow to make sure that you all have this, for those that couldn't get on it tonight, because it's really important to us that we kick off with this exact message. So watch for that in your inbox tomorrow, and watch for the link for tomorrow night. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 6:30 Philly time. I know we have 17 different countries and time zones, so I'll just tell you, you got to figure out.
Yes. It's 1:15 in the morning, so I should go to bed, really.
Good night, Clark.
Good night, everyone. I'll see you Saturday. Bye.
All right, everybody. Thanks so
Goodbye.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
So.
Yes.